Welcome to Warriors Charts. Our focus here is raising consciousness. Please subscribe. Feel free to comment. I hope you enjoy. Be blessed. Life and Teaching of the Masters of the Far East, Volume 2, Chapter 14. When we were summoned to breakfast that morning, the leader was the first one up. He hurried through his morning toilet like an eager schoolboy. After he had finished, he urged everybody to more haste. We finally went into breakfast and found Emil and Jast. The leader went over and sat between them and asked questions throughout the meal. The moment we finished eating, he arose from the table and wanted to rush off again to see the house that had grown in 15 minutes, as he had expressed it. He put his hands on Jast's shoulders and said that if he had two like Emil and his mother, what fun he would have going around and growing houses for poor people. Then he said, "But would I not make the landlords in New York look sick? I pay rent to those fellows." Then Emil said, "Suppose they would not let you grow houses for them?" "Well," he said, "I would do it anyway, and after I had grown them and they would not use them, I would pick them up bodily and put them in and chain them." All of us laughed heartily over these things. As our party was so large, it was thought best not to go in a body to see the little house. It was arranged that we were to go in groups of 5 or 6. The personnel of the first group was to be Emil, the leader, 1 or 2 of the ladies, and myself. We started out, and Emil's mother and our hostess joined us. We walked on until we came in sight of the house. The little girl came running out to meet us and threw herself in Emil's mother's arms, saying that her brother was strong and fine. As we reached the house, the mother of the children came out, dropped to her knees in front of Emil's mother, and began telling how she adored her. Emil's mother put out her hands and assisted her to her feet, telling her that she must not kneel to her, that what she had done for her she would do for anyone, that she was not to praise her, but the Great One for the blessing she had received. The little boy opened the door, and the mother mentioned us to go in. We followed the ladies in, with our hostess interpreting for us. There was no question that the house was there. It contained 4 rooms and was very comfortable. It was surrounded on 3 sides by the most miserable hovels. We were told that the occupants of the hovels were going to move away, as they thought the house was of the evil one and might destroy them if they stayed. Okay, so there's quite a bit missing from this chapter. I'm going to continue to read from the book. We heard more from the governor also. At about 11 that morning, he sent the commander and a detail of soldiers to invite us to lunch with him at 2 that afternoon. We accepted. At the appointed hour, there was a guard waiting to escort us to the governor's house. The reader will understand there were no fine equipages in that country, so we used the only mode of locomotion we had, walking. When we arrived at the governor's house, we found that a number of lamas, including the high priest from the nearby monastery, had preceded us. We learned that this monastery housed from 15 to 1800 lamas and was of considerable importance. The governor was one of the higher body of priesthood of the monastery. We at first expected a lively discussion, but soon learned that the luncheon was only for the purpose of getting acquainted with the members of our party. Our friends were very well acquainted with the high priest, as they had met a great many times and had worked together. This, it seems, the governor did not know until that morning, as the high priest had been away from the monastery for about 3 years and had returned only the evening before our arrival. During the course of the lunch, we found that these lamas were well educated, had a broad outlook on life, had traveled a great deal, and 2 of them had spent a year in England and America. They had been told by the governor of what had occurred the evening before, and in all, a very close friendly feeling was evidenced before the luncheon was concluded. As for the governor, we found him a very congenial fellow, and the only mention made of the previous evening was to the effect that a great enlightenment had come to him. He plainly said that until the last evening he had harbored a great hatred for all foreigners. We were obliged to carry on all conversation through interpreters, which is not very satisfactory when one wishes to get the deep thoughts of the other. Before we left, we were extended a cordial invitation to visit the monastery and spend the next day there as their guest. At Emil's suggestion, we accepted, and the next day spent with them was very pleasant and instructive. We found the head lama a very remarkable man. The friendship that began that day between him and our chief afterwards ripened into a close and lifelong brotherly understanding, and he was of untold service to us in the latter research work which has been carried on in the adjoining country. End of chapter.